beware,
IGN GameScoop.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to GameScoop. I am your host, Damon Hatfield. Making his GameScoop debut today, joining us, is Vince Ingenito.
Hello.
I said it right, yes?
You nailed it. Like,
Okay.
perfect.
It's pretty good.
Couldn't ask for more.
Dan Stapleton is also here today.
You didn't say that right.
I butchered your name.
It's Stapleton. Everyone knows that, Demon.
You'd be surprised. I've heard Stapleton from telemarketers.
No.
That's good.
Nope.
Stapleton?
Nope. The English that was not being spoken by that person is
Mispronouncing your
astounding.
name. Mispronouncing your name is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Isn't it great that telemarketing has pretty much gone away, right? Like
Oh,
it's-
I got a call yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
It was awful.
This one over here is Justin Davis.
Scoop.
And what, do you have something to say?
I just like how Dan's your sentence was, I got a phone call yesterday. It was awful. It is kind of the worst.
Never call me.
People call me, I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, you're right. Just text. Anyway, today we're talking about Diablo 3. When it launched last year, its real money auction house was a controversial subject. Now,
That's one way you could put it.
How did it work? It allowed people to sell the game items that they found for real world money, right?
Well, so it's not just the real money auction house. The real money auction house didn't launch until a few weeks after launch, but the auction house, the gold auction house, radically there are two separate auction houses. It radically changed the way Diablo is played, because traditionally it's all about hitting that loot pinata until it explodes and something good falls out, and then you have that and you're like, oh my god, I've got this, now I can either use it to hit more loot pinatas or trade it with somebody else. And around that, and in Diablo 2, there was this black market economy that sprung up on third-party websites, and people were getting ripped off. So Blizzard was like, okay,
the auction house was supposed to fix that.
Let's formalize it, and let's and Blizzard was getting a taste of it as well.
Right.
But they created a system similar to what you have in World of Warcraft, where there's an auction house where people have this big persistent economy where they're trading stuff. And Blizzard thought, okay, let's take that great idea we had for WoW and put it in Diablo.
So what happened was, you're right. Diablo used to be a game of, I'm a barbarian or whatever class. I'm gonna run this boss a bunch of times until I get the barbarian drop that I need. And then in Diablo 3, it became, I'm just gonna grind out gold until I can buy the barbarian pants or whatever it is that I need. It really did fundamentally change the way that the game felt and played.
Or I'm going to grind out washing dishes in real life until I can afford that next legendary. That's
That's when the real money auction house launched. That completely screwed up.
That's a whole separate can of worms. I mean, I guess what you're getting at is there's two separate. The real money auction house was kind of gross feeling, but even without the real money auction house, just having an auction house at all changed the balance of the game, changed the drop rates, changed the way that it felt.
Absolutely, like in a very dramatic way too. Like I was just reading an article about the way that drop rates had to be altered to consider the auction house. And so if you took a unique item in Diablo 2 that might have had a drop rate of say 1 in 50,000, that in order to accommodate for the auction house, the estimated it would have to be 1 to millions in order for it to make sense within the auction house. So if you wanted to play without,
would be flooded with that unique.
Exactly right, and the economy would kind of fall apart, and the item wouldn't mean anything anymore. So in order to even make this happen, even if you didn't want to play the gold auction house, even if you didn't want to have it be part of your experience, you just wanted to be a self-found character, your experience is dramatically impaired.
That's the big problem. Right. That's the part that Blizzard missed with all of this. Is I choose to believe that their heart was in the right place. I choose to believe that they weren't trying to make it, a money-making thing for them. That was sort of a happy side effect of it. I choose to believe that they were trying to solve that black market and sort of bring it in-house to control it so people wouldn't get ripped off or scammed. But the problem was, even if you didn't want to participate in the auction house, it affected your game because you couldn't play the game without the auction house. I think
at a high level.
At a high level.
Sure.
Or I mean, just generally, like everybody had access to it, so it affected your game even if you never touched it.
Right.
Because it affected your drop rate.
But today, Blizzard announces that they're shutting down the auction house.
Which, huzzah! I mean, there's got to be some guys at Blizzard, some camp of designers that are feeling incredibly vindicated right now. Like
Right,
there was some guy there saying "I told you so" the whole time, and through the launch, like they're saying, "Oh, people like it," and he's just sitting there shaking his head. Now he's just like, "Yeah, well, told you."
It's interesting though, right? Like, it's not an MMO where people are paying a subscription fee. They already have everybody's money.
Yeah. I mean, this is an admission that they fucked up in a big way,
and it's
it
an
really
admission
is.
that's been a long time coming because like they've already in different ways, in smaller ways, made that admission. Like Jay Wilson, the game's director at the time when the game launched, it's not the same director anymore, but he's gone on record several times since launch to say, you know, I don't think this had as positive a impact as we thought it would.
He called it the wrong solution to the problem.
Absolutely.
And so they have definitely acknowledged that it did not work the way they intended. It screwed up the experience in ways that they did not anticipate. And that, should they have? Probably.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Like there's a chance that they might patch in offline play now. Like you could never play Diablo 3 offline, even though it's a single-player game, because people might be able to dupe items or exploit things. And so that auction house created a whole like sort of ripple of side effects that were unintended. That, I mean, you're looking at me like maybe they're not going to do that.
I really doubt they're going to do that. I mean, it's.
I disagree. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's always BattleNet. Like you'll need to authenticate that way,
Right.
I suppose.
I mean, it's DRM. You know, they're not going to give that up unless they absolutely have to.
Right.
And honestly, like you know, I went back and played a little bit when just to warm up a little bit for the console version that Vince reviewed, and like I didn't have any problems with it. It seems with lag, and we are in an urban area. There's a lot of good internet access here, but like I never had any skipping.
Sure,
it
but
seems
it's
like
also,
most of that's been ironed out.
I mean, it's philosophical though, right? Like single-player games should probably not require you to be online, just philosophically, even if you don't have any gameplay problems.
Right, but that it's like Blizzard has kind of proven with WoW that people are willing to go online and stay online.
But that's an MMO.
Right, and they still think of Diablo as a co-op game.
Sure.
First and foremost.
I mean, I think, so, the reason that this is an admission that someone fucked up majorly is because that auction house is very, very, very difficult for them to implement, especially the real money auction house. Like, the mechanisms that they had to put into place and the payment protections, I guarantee you they had to scale up an entire team of people that they didn't even have. They had to hire expertise from outside the company because not only are they taking people's money, but they're paying you money for selling items. And so that entire sort of accounting infrastructure from top to bottom that would have had to be built up, got used once, is not in use anymore.
If they're going to shut it down, it must not have been incredibly profitable for them, right?
No, I have to disagree. I think it was actually. I mean, I don't have those kinds of metrics in front of me. But if you imagine, I mean, that's just free. That's just free money for them. I mean, every
they're
time
giving up
someone.
now?
Yeah, like that's what's most shocking to me about it is that I know for a fact. Well, you know what it comes down to, Damon, is that it only works if lots of people are playing the game and lots of people are finding cool items and lots of people are putting those up on the auction house and lots of other people are buying them. But you've seen player numbers for Diablo 3 like just steadily, like month on month, just down.
But they're still high. I mean, there's still over 1 million people playing last time Blizzard reported.
There's still absolutely got to be income coming in. But I think they've realized. I think the main motivation for this is, I think the reviews and the reaction to the console version of Diablo 3,
Which doesn't include the auction house.
which doesn't have the auction houses, right? Exactly, and has offline play. I think the overwhelmingly positive reaction to that has shown them that if they're going to sell an expansion, like we all kind of can be, guilty of not following through with what we say when we say, oh, this business practice is repulsive to me, and so I'm not going to buy this game.
But then we buy into it anyway.
Right? Then we buy it anyway. But this is one of those cases that if you
still do very well, right?
Right, absolutely. But this is one of those cases that if you've been following the message boards at BattleNet since launch, it's a different level. This isn't like where you've got one vocal minority post saying, rah, rah, we shouldn't buy this. It's literally, the whole forum is flooded with people saying this is just nonsense at this point. And I think seeing the positive critical response to the console version has made them go, you know what, if we want to sell an expansion, if we want to sell Reaper of Souls, we need to do something.
I think this is, I agree with you, but I do think this is something that has to have been in the works long before the console reviews came out.
On the other hand, I don't think it's a coincidence that they announced it so soon after the console launch.
I agree.
I think that the console was probably the final nail in the coffin.
They probably were planning it. You're right. Something this big they couldn't have just come up with in a week or so.
Yeah.
They must have been planning it at some point. But I'm almost positive that they were saying, well, let's see how the console version pans out and what the reaction is, and then we'll kind of show our cards.
What I agree with you on 100% is that this is clearly a math problem for Blizzard. They said, look, this is how many copies of this expansion we want to sell or need to sell versus how much money that real money auction house is bringing in. We can keep the real money auction house and keep that money, but we will sell 25% less expansions, and the math worked out in their favor, and it's going to be a popular decision anyway. So yeah,
and in terms of popularity, I mean, again, if you follow, I've definitely, especially in the game's early life on PC, I follow the message boards very, very closely.
Super fan over here.
Yeah, no, I was definitely, like, for even months before the game came out, I was one of those people who, like, every day I was on the message boards looking for the, next interesting new topic. But it's amazing. Every time they did a big community post or a developer diary, you always see like 2,000 replies underneath, and they're all like, "I hate Blizzard. Blizzard sucks. God, these guys are dumb." They post this. It's literally the first post since the game launched where the first 100 replies. I mean, I didn't read all of them, but the first 100 replies are all yes, oh my god, amazing, we love you, thank you. It's the most unified I've seen the Diablo 3 player base since the game launched.
Yeah, I mean, Reaper of Souls has been a cavalcade of good news from top to
That's
bottom.
the expansion.
Yes.
And when is that out?
Sometime
soon.
next year.
It's next year. Yeah, I mean, that'll be like 2 years after its launch.
Give or take, yeah.
I was just surprising they announced they're shutting it down, but not for 6 months from now. Not
I mean,
till
I feel
March,
like that's
what is it, March 18th of
I
next
feel
year.
like it's got to be payment stuff. Like, if you made a lot of money on that auction house, like I said, I can't emphasize how much work it was for them to set this up. Like, you have to get tax documents from Blizzard in order to, sell items on this real money auction house. That's all being spun down and shut down now. Like, it's like, I don't know that we've seen a reversal like this in a long, long time.
And it wasn't a small amount of money people were making off of it either.
No.
Like I've seen people on Twitter saying they made thousands of dollars.
Yep.
Really?
Sure, absolutely.
And that's what the whole thing felt kind of gross. Like, that's what we did a Game Scoop on this, and I wrote an article on why core gamers don't like free to play. And even though Diablo wasn't free to play, the principle is the same, that it's making you think about money when you're playing a video game.
Right, because now every time you get a nice legendary drop, if you decide to equip that to your character or just throw it in your stash,
Like, it's
there's an opportunity cost there. That's $10, $20, $250 you could have made on that item that you're not making now. Who wants to sit, even if you're not planning on using the auction house, that means every time one of those really super good legendaries drops, it's like, either
you have to hit the auction house and
right,
check.
exactly.
You
It's
have
like
to check.
it's like either I level up a new character just to use this new item, or
For
I
sure.
can just throw it on the auction house and make money.
That's exactly right.
And
It's
all of
like-
a sudden you're saying, now this is a car payment I could be making, but instead of a car payment, I'm choosing to have fun with this item, and that feels icky.
It's like, this is, like, I really liked Diablo 3, but it's like, if I got a $100 legendary, I am not keeping that legendary. I am immediately selling
Right.
it. Like, come on.
It's fascinating and sounds like ultimately positive news.
Fantastic. Right?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic news. What I think is going to be interesting to see is how the timing of it works out with Loot 2.0.
What is that, by the way?
Okay, so we don't have exact specifics on Loot 2.0 because it's still something that they're working on. We do know that a good framework to look at to know what it's going to be like is the console version, which they're kind of affectionately calling Loot 1.5. It involves a lot of the changes that they're looking to implement in Loot 2.0, but basically
It's going to be more drops.
It's going to be
More drops?
Well,
okay,
yes
so
and no.
yeah, well, okay, so
Well,
it's going to be less actual. Like
Junk
less,
drops.
less junk drops, more meaningful drops. But then the legendaries, they're going to retool again. They're coming up with a whole new set of affixes to make the legendaries more interesting. And then I think the two biggest changes are the smart drops, which means that legendaries will drop. And I think it's pretty much going to be guaranteed that the primary stat is going to match the character you're playing as. And one of the big problems right now is that legendary items only drop in the difficulty level that's appropriate for. They're tied to a difficulty level. So there's legendaries that are going to drop in, say, Nightmare, but they're not going to drop in Inferno. And the problem there is that if it has a
become
really
useless,
interesting
yeah.
effect, you might say, "Oh, this is cool. This changes exactly. It becomes useless. This is a neat item. I like using it, but once I get into Inferno, it's useless." Now, all legendaries will drop at all levels. So there can be like a level 20 version of this really cool, of like Messerschmitt's Reaver, but then I can also get an item level 63 version of it theoretically.
I mean,
when
more,
I hit
like,
Inferno.
it's what we were talking about earlier, where you might go forever, hours, and not
Right.
get something usable on your character because they were trying to balance for the auction house. And
Right.
now they can unravel all that and sort of say, look, people need to get meaningful upgrades for their character by playing the game, not by spending money on the auction house.
Sure, and I think that since removing the auction houses is definitely part of the proposition, the value proposition to make people say, "Okay, I'll come back to this game and play Reaper of Souls." I have to imagine that timing-wise, Reaper of Souls is going to come sometime after.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sometime after this change for sure, but. That also means that Loot 2.0, which they haven't nailed down a definite time for, and some people are afraid was going to be part of like what you had to pay for with Reaper of Souls.
No,
that's not going to
way.
happen. There's no way it's going to happen now. I think that that Loot 2.0 is going is going to be hot on the heels of the removal.
Yeah,
of
I mean,
the,
that does that
the
almost.
auction house. It has to be. Yeah.
In terms of like predicting timing, I think that almost certainly means we're not going to see any of this before that auction house is stripped out. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's like this is all going to come after. What do you say, March 18th?
Yeah.
Yeah, those two things are incompatible. They cannot
Right.
coexist.
So my guess is we'll see that auction house spun, removed. We'll see Loot 2.0 come in a free update, and then we'll see the expansion after that. Most likely.
And they've said that the Loot 2.0 update will be a free patch. It won't be part of Reaper of Souls.
Right.
Nice.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Viewers, stay tuned for more from IGN Game Scoop.